Hi, everybody. Welcome to the two-man game on Claves Online. I'm Bob Ramsey. That's Matt Rocchio. And Rock, the things continue to not go as we expect, but now that the first round is almost completely over, the um, sort of in a bottom line way, we're sort of where we thought we'd be.
Yeah,
Sort of.
it took us a kind of a roundabout way
Yeah.
in a couple of these series to get the result we thought we would get, but in the end, almost all of them have ended exactly like we thought. Across Wednesday and Thursday, we had 5 games. We had 5 closeouts. Wednesday, 2 game, 5 closeouts for the Bucks over the Bulls and the Warriors over the Nuggets. And then yesterday on Thursday, we had closeouts in Game 6 from the 76ers, the Suns, and the Dallas Mavericks. All three of the away teams in those games getting their Game 6 closeouts, which just leaves us with one remainder left, and that is the Grizzlies and the Timberwolves. But the fun thing there is it's not even going to end tonight. It's a game or could end tonight, excuse me. But we could even have a Game 7 on Sunday between these two teams should Minnesota get one in here.
So let's go with chronology because my brain doesn't work in the abstract. So let's go back to Wednesday. Chicago at Milwaukee. Milwaukee wins. My takeaway from it is that in maybe more subtle ways than not, with Milwaukee playing multiple bigs and sometimes three bigs at once, sort of the opposite of the trend of pro and even college basketball in a way. In a
Yeah,
way, it's also we're putting our five best guys out there. Our five best, three of them happen to be huge.
yeah. I mean, when you have the unicorn that is Giannis Antetokounmpo, it does kind of shift what
Yeah.
your lineup's going to look at, because like what's a regular lineup to you is just isn't going to look regular. I think, but to your point, I think one of the most surprising parts for the Bucks was that they were still able to play Brook Lopez almost 30 minutes per game
Yes.
in a playoff series. I think that's a big surprising thing for them. The big question's got to be: Are teams are teams that are a little bit more shooting based, a little bit better at spreading the floor than the Bulls? Are they going to be able to completely take Lopez out? Are they going to be able to attack the drop? Attack Lopez defensively in ways that the Bulls weren't able to? That's, I think, going to be the big question here moving into round two for the Bucks. They're going to be facing off against Boston. So the question there is, guys like Jaylen Brown, guys like Jason Tatum, are they going to be able to pull Brook Lopez out on a switch and then just murder him in the mid range when he leaves them that just too much space right there on the perimeter by going into that drop, so he doesn't get completely beat to the basket? Because Brook Lopez is better than a lot of 7-footers when it comes to guarding the perimeter, but I mean he's barely even 30% of what Gobert is, and you saw how badly that can go for the Jazz defense when you have a good center who can jump out on the perimeter, and how teams can even take advantage of that. Brook Lopez isn't even that good, so it's going to be interesting to see.
And it reminds me even more of how Memphis saw after game one. Nope, we're not doing this, and changed and took Adams out of the lineup. So will somebody force Milwaukee to change? Somebody, I mean Boston. Will they force them to change? And we'll see. And also we'll see if Memphis, if they should win and go to the next round, if they go back to Adams or they kind of stay the course. So those are things to talk about down the line. Um, Golden State, Denver made it a pretty darn good game, but in the end, Golden State just has too much firepower.
Yeah, I mean, it's just you can say everything you want about the play of Nikola Jokic. I will happily do so. He's freaking incredible, and what he was able to do in this playoff run was nothing short of unbelievable. I mean, he's dragging a team that is not healthy, that has no other quality players above about 12 or 15 points per game. Will Barton's the closest thing he has right now, and that's just not enough without MPJ, without Jamal
Yeah.
Murray. He's just, I mean, it's we knew it was going to happen. It was inevitable, even against a potentially, not 100% Warriors team. It was going to be tough for for the Nuggets because they're not 100%. They haven't been the entire season. But Jokic did his best. He forced Draymond into some tough games, tired him
Mm-hmm.
out for a little bit, and unfortunately, I believe it's lining up that Boston that. I think it's lining up right now. I know Phoenix is going to pull Dallas, so whoever wins Minnesota and Memphis looks like they're going to pull the Warriors. So I just think that either one of those teams is going to be a better matchup to fit just right off the bat for the Warriors. So we'll see
Oh, I agree.
just a completely different defensive set and system against the Warriors than we saw any of the last 5 games as soon as they move on to the second round, no matter who it is.
And that's probably a conversation we'll have Monday or Tuesday, depending on who that is. Moving to Thursday, Philadelphia. Oh my.
Yeah,
They just said, look, hey, Toronto, we appreciate you guys are in the league. You had a nice season, but we had, you know what? We were disinterested. Sorry, we owe the fans their money's worth. Here's the real us.
That's fair. And credit to Doc Rivers for being able to close out that game. Obviously, I know there was a lot of consternation around Doc Rivers and the 76ers if they could close out that one after taking the 3-1 lead and letting them slip in 3-2 and go back up to Toronto. I thought it was going to be a better game from the Raptors, and then Fred VanVleet was ruled out of the game. And he's the engine on that team. As much as I've talked about all the different myriad wing players and the bigs and the different kind of special players they have there in Toronto. The fact of the matter is that Fred VanVleet is the engine that makes that team run. As the point guard, as the team leader, he's the guy who kind of, he's the straw that stirs the drink. So it's going to be hard for them to get anything going. And if you watch the game, you saw it was impossible for them to get anything going consistently throughout the game. It was close at one point, and then as soon as they hit that point in an NBA game where you have to have 3 or 4 shooters who can get you 9 points and kind of bring you back into a game and start a run the other way, they just didn't have it, and that's just kind of the way the roster is built right now.
Then we go down to head down to the mouth of the Mississippi River, Phoenix and New Orleans, and Phoenix to me kind of said, hey guys, Booker's back, see ya. And even though he only had 13 points, but just having him back, you can see the mix. You can see the flow works.
And heck, I think you have to notice the pressure it took off Chris Paul as he has some struggles leading up into game 6, for about 3 games after Booker goes down, and then he comes out and goes 14 of 14. He didn't miss a shot from the field in the playoffs, Bob. Or in a game in the playoffs, I should say. That's ridiculous. I mean, they call him the point god for a reason. He's incredible, but I think that shows you, if you, as an NBA team, even one like the New Orleans Pelicans, yes, they have a good backcourt with guys like Alvarado who are defensive menaces, but if you can focus on pressuring a Chris Paul, if you can focus on pressuring secondary ball handlers like Cam Payne and Landry Shamet, then Chris Paul can't tear you apart anymore. He doesn't have it anymore. He's just, the athleticism isn't there. He's injured, probably in 1 or 2 ways that he's not talking about right now at this point in the season. But as soon as you bring in Booker and the eye effect of how much you have to focus on Chris Paul comes a little bit diminished, because in my opinion the best player on the team is back on the court. You saw what it did. It changed the defense that the Pelicans were showing them, and inevitably it changed the way the game went as it went on late. Also, Mikal Bridges. But we said Mikal Bridges had to step up on Tuesday. He stepped up Tuesday night right after we spoke. Absolutely locked down every single Pelican he was guarding, including Brandon Ingram. And then last night he had another great game. Ingram had 21, but it was 21 he had to work hard for. He had to waste possessions to get that 21. Mikal Bridges had a little bit of a lull and then did exactly what we thought he was going to do as a guy who was top 3 in Defensive Player of the Year voting. That was a very impressive game by Mikal Bridges, stepping up and doing what he knew he had to do.
And then we go to Utah, and I really thought Utah was going to take this game over. And I'm sitting there watching the game, and I'm saying, okay, this is the possession they take over. Okay, and they just couldn't do it. And the Mavs, in the end, this is obviously an oversimplification, but the Mavs just kept making the shots they needed to make. They didn't get to the line, look at the difference. 6 more free throws made, 15 of 20 for the Jazz, 9 of 11 in an NBA playoff where it seems like it's a foul call every possession. They only go to the line 11 times and they still find a way to win. The possession before the last shot Doncic made, he was dribbling, and I go, he's going to mess this up. Everybody stood. Nobody moved. Everybody in the building, including his teammates, said, he's going to just go ahead. And he missed. And I thought, uh-oh, Utah's going to grab it and go. They couldn't make shots. They just couldn't make shots. And then he comes down and then hits the dagger at the end. So, good.
I thought it was another instance, though, where the thing that jumped out to me was the Jazz defense. 17 of 43 from deep in this game for the Dallas Mavericks, 39.5%. That was a big part in their scoring. That's 4 of 9 from Dorian Finney-Smith. That's 4 of 10 from Doncic, 4 of 7 from Dinwiddie, and then a couple others throughout the roster. This is a Mavericks team that shouldn't be shooting 40% on you on over 40% or on over 43s in a game. It can't happen. But again, this is what happens when we talk about a team that is simply flawed for playoff basketball. When you have guards like Doncic and Jalen Brunson, and listen, credit to Jalen Brunson and the Mavericks. Nobody, including the Jazz, thought that Jalen Brunson was gonna have the series that he had this last week and a half against the Magic. This is a guy who came in and was averaging 15, 16 points in the regular season, and he comes out and averages, I think, close to 26. What was it? So it's 24, 24, 23, 31, 41. So 28 points per game in this 6-game series for Jalen Brunson. So I mean, talk about a guy jumping up 8-9 points. He obviously has the huge games when Doncic is out, but then he keeps on matching Doncic with 24 points in this last game. That's the kind of balanced scoring that Dallas didn't have this year that they have now. And then again, they were just able to keep getting downhill against the Jazz, driving kicks, a lot of three-point shots, and it was just too much for a Jazz offense that it can get going, in the flow. But beyond Donovan Mitchell and at times Jordan Clarkson, they have trouble getting buckets in that one-on-one game. Heck, I mean, even Bogdan Bogdanovic during the regular season, or even early in the series, at times was just able to manufacture a bucket whenever he wanted to. That was not available. That didn't exist in the third and fourth quarter of last night's game. So obviously, give a lot of credit to the Dallas defense as well.
Yeah, and so again, I just kept thinking that even to the very end, it was going to go the other way, and Dallas made, 43 threes. That's just the idea that you're going to take. We're just going to keep shooting. We're just going to shoot
because they were consistently able to isolate those looks.
Yeah.
Anytime Gobert wasn't on the floor, they had different ways to do it. Just because you're attacking a team without any big men, it's easy to get into the paint and then just drive and kick all day. And then when Gobert's on the floor, it's just you get him out on the perimeter and then you hunt for shots behind him. And then you have driving kicks that way too. Most times to the weak side of the defense, which in a lot of the times is the weakness of the Jazz. It's just it's a great example. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say what's funny about the drive and kick. It's not what I would call traditional ball movement. It's all the guy's got it. He's either going to take it or find a guy, and then the shot's going up. Yeah. It's not screens and rolls, and it's not 5 passes and 6. It's pretty simple, really.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much this philosophy is getting thrown around Dallas, but it wouldn't surprise me. It would surprise me. Jason Kidd isn't a numbers guy. But in Memphis, they talk a lot about how if they just get more possessions than the other team, they're going to win. They're going to win. They're going to win out in the large numbers if they just keep getting more possessions. And you can't focus on bad possessions necessarily. You just got to keep focusing on more possessions, more shots, and eventually the game's going to start breaking your way. And I thought that and I kind of got that feeling at times from the Mavericks, which was just like you said, they were constantly pressing play after play after play. If it's even a semi-good look, and we keep getting them against this team, we're a good enough offensive team that they're going to fall. And right now, they're not a good enough offensive team to make us pay for it because Mike Conley was looking old. Bogdanovich wasn't able to do it once Dorian Finney-Smith was able to focus on him, and then Rudy Gobert's just not going to be a problem for you offensively. He never gets the ball thrown his way, and so when you take away players when you take out players wholesale that aren't going to be an effect on offense, that's going to hurt you at times too.
Absolutely. Now we have a game to look forward to, a game with a lot on the line. The team we've been following all year, Memphis, plays at Minnesota. Memphis can close it out on the road. Minnesota can force a game 7. despite the bravado that Memphis has shown all year and through this series, you don't want to go to game 7 if you don't have to, because then anything can lose the series. A bad foul call, a turnover, a missed shot, anything could end the series. So Memphis is going to, obviously they want to get after it, and so we'll see if, and maybe that's something for our viewers to track. That's a good heads up, Rocc. Let's keep track of those possessions.
Yeah.
Can they hold their turnovers down, create a few more Minnesota turnovers, but that also means they got to rebound. And that's the other way you get more possessions, by getting offensive rebounds and closing out your defensive stance with a defensive rebound.
Yeah, and they were one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the league. In fact, their big Game 5 win over the Timberwolves, Brandon Clark getting like 7 offensive rebounds in the second half, was a huge part about them being able to get those second half points, get that possession number racketed up, and eventually they started taking over. And so you're right, offensive rebounds was a huge thing, a big thing. This has been the biggest part of the entire series. The Grizzlies have been able to take a 3-2 lead without it happening, but if they want to close this one out with some level of comfort and not have to sweat this one out, Jaren Jackson Jr. simply has to be a better, more disciplined player. At this point in his career, and this has been said by every person in Memphis media and in the NBA media, so it's not a surprising take, but it's just the fact of the matter is it's crystallized. It is too long into your NBA career to be fouling out at the 20-minute mark of at the 20-minute mark of minutes played in the game. You just can't be doing that stuff anymore. That is babyface rookie kind of stuff. You cannot be pulling you can't be pulling 6 fouls in 24 minutes. That's inexcusable. And it completely changes your game plan. It completely changes how your team has to attack teams late in the game. It completely changes most likely how you have to come out of things like the second half and the third quarter, when you have to win those next quarters and those next possessions to kind of take control of the game. Jaren Jackson Jr. can't be on the floor because he's already got 4 fouls, or he's already got 5 fouls, God forbid. So he has to have a better game. Obviously, that's asking a lot. He's guarding one of the best, if not the best, pure offensive big men in the league. It's Joel Embiid, it's Nikola Jokic, and it's Karl Anthony Towns, and he's undeniably the best three-point shooter, which exacerbates the amount of space that Jaren Jackson has to cover. But you've got the skill, and so you're not going to find anybody making excuses for the guy, because every time we watch him, we see that he can play from the under the basket out to the rim or out to the perimeter as a defender, and he can lock guys down. But he's got to be more disciplined about it. He's got to watch his fouls. He's got to stop going up on dumb pump fakes. And listen, that's a hard lesson to learn in 2 nights, but he's got to mature quickly, that's for sure.
Let me change subject just for a minute, as I've been watching the last 2 weeks. What if it's radical and it's fantasy? It's just a fantasy notion. What if a coach came out and said, "We're not going to foul anybody. No fouls. We're not going to foul anybody."
Jaren Jackson Jr. would still get 3. I don't think that was your question, but that's my answer.
That is a better answer.
He would somehow still get 3 called on him. That's like it seems like you'll be watching a Grizzlies game, and you're like, Jaren Jackson gets too early. Oh, geez. He goes out, comes off the bench, and if you look away for a second, you swear he just breathed on a guy and picked up his 3rd one. It's insane. It's insane how it happens. And again, it's more understandable when it's the playoffs and they're calling things tighter, like they have been this series. And it is Karl Anthony Towns. But I mean, you're supposed to be number 2 on a borderline championship team behind Ja Morant. It's put up or shut up. Are you is this Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, and Dylan Brooks, or is this are you part of that big 3? Are you part of that big 4? That's right. That's the question that Jaren Jackson that's on his plate tonight, and against what's going to be a raucous crowd in Minnesota, he's going to have to show up. And again, it's an away game, so listen, it's not intentionally. I'm not saying it happens intentionally, but no matter what any referee says, there are plenty of times where home advantage takes over, and the fact that you're going to get jeered by 50,000 if you call this charge against Karl Anthony Towns and not a block, it might change a little bit how you call it. And so it's an away game for Jaren Jackson Jr., so it's going to be even higher stakes. Game 6, chance to close it out. You don't want to go back home in one of those rare cases, and you got one of the best players on the line right in front of you. You got to have yourself a game. And, maybe for Jaren Jackson Jr., the idea is Ja's going to get his, Dylan's going to get his, Desmond's going to get his, but my get tonight has to be, it doesn't have to be 15, 10, and 4. It's got to be 33 minutes. I honestly
stay on the floor.
Yeah, that's got to be his goal. I don't care about him shooting. I don't care about him scoring. Yeah, obviously because of what we were talking about with how they have to win games as the Grizzlies, his offensive rebounding and things is going to be important. But for him right now, the biggest number we're going to be looking at with Jaren Jackson Jr., minutes played.
There you go. There's now. But what about from the Minnesota side? Minnesota says if we can win this one, we win at home, they'll feel good about going back to Memphis for a game 7. What do they got to do?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing has to be a guy like Anthony Edwards has to continue playing his game. He's gone from 21 points in the regular season up to about 24 points in the postseason. His efficiency hasn't really dropped down very much, but he gambled on that last play of the game. In Game 5, he went high on that pass, and that gave John Moran an easy sprint towards the rim, where he then was able to lay it up against Jared Vanderbilt.
Nightmare.
He went high on that play, and he admitted afterwards that he made a dumb mistake. You're going to have another play most likely when this is a close game, when it's going to kind of come down to, can Anthony Edwards make the smarter play? And there's going to be a lot of micro decisions throughout the game where he's going to have to make that decision. But those ones he's been fine at this year. The question is, at the end of the game, when things slow down a little bit more, is Anthony Edwards going to step up as a second-year player? I think that's going to be the big question. He's incredible. He's scoring at a wild rate, but he's struggling at times in the fourth quarter, and that makes sense. And so can he continue to play a full 60 minutes? That's going to be my big question. I'm putting a lot on Anthony Edwards, but I mean, if there's any young player in the NBA who wants that kind of mindset about him out there, it's Anthony Edwards, and I'm okay with backing him up on that.
So who do you like tonight?
I actually think, despite the fact that it's going to make me nervous as hell, I actually do think that tonight's going to be a game where the Minnesota Timberwolves are going to be able to eke it out. They're going to force Game 7 against the Grizzlies. I just think that Jaren Jackson Jr. is going to have a tough time in an away game. If he really settles down, and I think there's a better chance he does it at Memphis when he has the crowd behind him, I think we're going to see another tough game for him. I think Taylor Jenkins is going to be quicker on the hook for him to try to maybe keep him out of foul trouble. If that'll work, we'll see. But I think that will lead to then is Karl Anthony Towns eating a little bit earlier, having a big game. I think Towns will go off. He'll have the bigger game than Edwards, points-wise, 33, 34 points. But Anthony Edwards in the fourth quarter, when Jaren Jackson Jr. is playing, because they held him back even more. He'll be playing in the fourth, but he'll be around 28, 29 minutes. He's going to do a good job on Towns. And that's going to be where Anthony Edwards kind of finishes this game off and forces a Game 7.
So there you heard it, gamblers. Matt Rocchio says take Minnesota straight up.
There it is.
In a Game 7.
There it is. Take Minnesota straight up, and we'll see you for Game 7.
Hey, only one college basketball note for our show today. Did you see where the player down at Miami?
Oh yes, this is a great point. Thank you so much for bringing
Jim
this
Larinaga,
up.
is a beloved coach and a really good coach, and a player who already had an NIL deal said, "Nah, if I'm coming back, I need more."
Yeah,
But wait,
I gotta find this. This is amazing.
But wait.
Yeah, Jonathan Gavoni of Draft Express was the one who broke that. That was awesome.
But wait, we agreed. We got you the money you want. But yeah, I know you did, but I think I'm worth more now. I changed my mind. I want more.
It was
So what it tells me seriously, got an NIL deal, and I don't know this for a fact, but there must not be a binding contract involved.
Well, that's the thing. There was a comment from the guy who from the company that he had the NIL deal that said, "I don't renegotiate. He can take the deal, or he can go to the draft, or he can go to the transfer portal. But I don't renegotiate my deals when I have people sign them." That was from like the business owner who kind of supported his NIL or sponsored his NIL deal. He was like, no, I don't renegotiate. Sorry, kid.
So is he more uh, Tommy Lee Jones from uh, from The Fugitive. I don't negotiate. Or or is he more like George Clooney? What is the name of that film? I can't think of it now. It's just the name of his character is the name of the film. But he
ER.
goes, "What's that?"
ER.
No. But he goes, "Does it look like I'm negotiating?"
Yeah, it's a much more the second. Here's the actual. This is the tweet from Jonathan Gavoni over at Draft Express, who was breaking this news. This is from billionaire John Ruiz, who has the who owns Life Wallet, which is the company that signed their NIL deal with Miami's Isaiah Wong. Isaiah is under contract. He has been treated by Life Wallet exceptionally well. If that is what he decides, I wish him well. However, I do not renegotiate. Surprises me because there are so many players that would love to play for the U. And listen, kid, I respect you saying, you know what, I have some leverage. You know, another kid came to Miami and got a bigger bag than I, but I'm the leader of this team. I deserve that size of bag. And he said, you know what, I have some leverage in this situation. And then he remembered that, you know, his leverage is a lot different than billionaire leverage, and that's a good lesson to learn.
Yeah. So what's interesting to me is when things are signed or not signed, when checks are handed over, when money goes into accounts. So when they made that deal with him, was that already for next year, you think, or was it just he was basing it off what he got paid this year?
I mean, I think it's his compensation next year is probably similar to what it was this year, and the guy who transferred or came to Miami got a much bigger deal than him, and he's pissed off because he led them to an Elite Eight, and he's the leader of the team, and now a new kid's going to be making more than him. And that's, again, that's the way the cookie crumbles. There was an update about 9 minutes ago from Gavoni. He said that Isaiah Wong has elected not to enter the transfer portal. He told ESPN Wong will keep his name in the NBA draft while maintaining his college eligibility. Wong and his representatives have spoken with LifeWallet CEO John Ruiz, who does not renegotiate. And Wong has been assured his LifeWallet agreement compiles with NCAA regulations. Like that was the issue. That wasn't the issue. But yeah, I think it's insane. I also, in the same thing, I saw Dick Vitale. By the way, great news for him. His cancer's in remission.
Isn't that great?
But he was tweeting about how about NIL and things like that, and he pointed out Oscar Toshibe, the Kentucky star who won the National Player of the Year, and he's like, look at this kid. He's getting a ton of money from Kentucky to stay there. These NIL deals are crazy. And my thought process was, that's not the NIL deal to criticize. I mean, he was already at Kentucky. He's the best. He's one of the best players, if not the best players in college basketball, and he's staying in college basketball another year, probably because he doesn't need to chase a potential maybe second round draft grade to the NBA because he's now getting 250, 300 grand, paid to him for his services for playing at Kentucky. Now college basketball gets one of the best players in the nation, a Wooden Award winner, to return. I mean, that just, we haven't, I didn't go back, but the amount of times that a Wooden Award winner has returned the next year after winning it in college basketball in the last 15 years, I think is once, maybe twice. And so, yeah, the Blue Bloods are gonna go hog wild in this. There's no doubt about it. But it's just interesting to me that that's not the best example for why NIL could be problematic. In fact, that's a perfect example for why at the top NIL is actually better for college basketball than the current system, because guys will not chase the draft in the same way. And now we might have guys staying 2 or 3 years, and that's going to make the actual product on the court in college basketball better.
But the only other thing to support that is learn from Kentucky and learn from Miami. What are you signing a guy to, for how much and for how long? And kids, kids just don't, at that age and that much money, they often don't get it. So also, parents, be careful of who your advisor is. When it comes to the amounts of money we're talking about, be careful. Multimillionaires and billionaires didn't get there for being stupid and throwing money away generally. So once they decide they're in on this, it doesn't mean they're just lighting cigars with $100 bills and laughing about it. So be wary.
Listen. I think that's a good standard for all these NIL stories is be wary. But again, this has this changed a lot of college basketball in a way? Yes. I just think it's brought to light a lot of things that were going on behind the scenes, and so I think there was a lot of I think that's kind of been a good piece of advice for parents of college kids since the 80s when recruiting became the battleground it really started to become, which is these advisors. You got to know who they are. You got to know who you can trust. You got to watch out for the people who are coming by just to grift along and get a payday. And that hasn't changed. It's just a little bit more out in the open now.
And a deep tease for another time, but outgoing NCAA president Mark Emmerick, he actually went from dead duck to lame duck. He somehow elevated lame duck. The only way, and I've been saying this for years because of cheating. I said I don't care about the money. The NCAA is not going to track it. They're not going to follow it. They're going to pick and choose who they punish. Forget the money. It is what it is. But what you can do is try and lock down on academics. Here's the thing, though. If you do it now, which, by the way, that is if I'm elected president of the NCAA, we will lock down on it. That's going to be the problem. Too many players will be saying, well, I'm paid. I'm not going to class.
Yeah.
And this is going to be an issue. And why do I care? Because I want the NBA and college basketball to be two separate things. I don't want college basketball to be AAA baseball.
That's fair. Hey, listen, I think a lot of the ways that the college athletics has been ruined is that the NFL understands that they have their developmental league, and there's no need for them to pay $1 to move on from that one. And so in that way, I think you're right. College football has a great system in a lot of ways, but the fact that they are essentially the perfect proving ground for the NFL, and the NFL never has to worry about changing that, is probably a reason why so many issues have popped up in college football.
All right, that's enough. Tonight, Memphis and Minnesota, and you and I will talk next week and be setting up the second round.
Sounds like a plan to me, Rammer.
See you, Rock. That's Matt Rocc. I'm Bob Ramsey. It's the two-man game right here on Claves Online.
At St. Louis Acura, we have over 330 pre-owned vehicles of all makes and models. And all of them are covered by our St. Louis Acura Promise and backed by our Better Business Bureau A+ rating and 30 years in business. We also service all makes and models of vehicles, including glass and bumper repair, paint touch-ups, and full mechanical services from one of our 24 technicians. St. Louis Acura, better than ever for you, no matter what vehicle drives you.